Welcome to season 3 of the Chad and Chong Podcast. I'm Chad.
And I'm Chong.
Can you believe we're in season 3 already? Wow. That's amazing. Listen, when we first started this out, 3 or 4 years ago, we wanted to keep doing this.
Consistently.
And as life happens, it's hard to be consistent, but we're excited for all of those who have been with us since season 1. And we're also excited if this is your first time tuning in. This podcast is all about sharing our journey and experience in real time as professionals in the music industry. And if you guys don't know, I'm a musician that has now primarily just been focusing on producing and sound engineering.
I am a drummer and content creator on the side with all the tech stuff going on in the world.
Yeah, and we do this full time. And it's very difficult, but we wanted to use this platform to try and just give light on this otherwise, industry with no path, really. And so we hope that you hang around and stick with us. We've got a ton of amazing things coming up on this season. Kevin, what are some things that our viewers can anticipate?
A lot of content, a lot of music content, podcasts, as well as possibly an artist series we've been talking about, getting some of the artists that Chad and I have worked with on this show. We're really excited to get their perspective, advice, tips on what to do or how to achieve, being an artist, a successful artist at that. And so, we have a lot in store for sure. A lot in store.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I do want to highlight and how and why we're actually able to do a season 3 is we've kind of have a team now.
Yeah. That's good, man.
If you guys didn't know, before the Chad and Chong podcast, Kevin had his own podcast that he was doing everything all by himself. And I believed in his content so much. I was just a viewer back then, and he needed some help with audio, and I jumped in. I said, "Hey, man, I want to help you out," and so I helped you out with your podcast, and then we started our own podcast. But it's really hard to keep this thing going, and so you want to introduce our team to us and how much they're helping us out.
Let's first talk about our videographer who's behind the cameras right now, Nathan Miguel. Shout out to Nathan. Who's been part of season 2. It's been awesome having him. That's why you see the upgrade and the quality just boost up from what it was prior to his arrival. It's been amazing. We shoot with 3 cameras, all Sonys, yeah, Nathan? Yeah, there we go. Shout out to Sony. So it's been great having him on our team and just being a part of the Chad and Chong podcast company,
team,
brand, whatever we are. And then we've, if you want to talk about Ralph.
Yeah, Raphael is helping us out in producing. He has a ton of experience in the film industry. He's worked with a lot of pretty exquisite brands and things like that. And I kind of dragged him in one time. I'm like, hey, just come to the studio, hang out. And this wasn't even my intention, but he says that I tricked him in so that he'll be part of it. But no, Raphael just sat in on a shoot that we did, and he really believed in what we were saying and the things that we were doing and what we're trying to do. And he kind of actually saw a bigger vision. And so he's like, sign me up, that's super exciting.
And he happens to be your cousin too,
he's
right?
He's like, yeah, we're like related distantly, second cousin. But yeah.
Lastly, we have Ernie Rangel. We got to meet him on a couple of shows we did with an artist several months ago, and he's an amazing editor, photographer. He shoots for a lot of Spanish worship ministries. I don't know all the names, but a lot of high profile artists as well. And so it's been great to have him on board with us. So we're really excited about the team we consist of now and everybody that's a part of making Chad and Chong happen. We definitely promise more consistency than ever because of the fact that now we have a legitimate team that really will help us get this content out to you guys a lot quicker.
Yeah, teamwork really does make the dream work. And this little dream of Chad and Chong that we thought we could do all by ourselves, which, we were doing it, but maybe not to the standards that we wanted and definitely not in the timing that we wanted.
Yeah.
All these guys are amazing people. And, we just want to personally thank them from the bottom of our hearts because everybody's just doing this for free. We're not paying anybody. But if you want to help us out, we'll link our Venmo and Zelle down in the bottom. If this content is really valuable to you, help us out, right? But Kevin, we're starting here the new year. It's January. you and I have been so busy last year. We got married. We were still trying to make a living doing this thing. But at the top of the year, usually people make New Year's resolutions. For the musicians, the top of the year is a really slow time. Everybody kind of breathes, and all the gigs, they kind of slow down. People have used up all their monies to throw parties, and so they're not hiring anybody.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good time for us in the music industry to actually reflect. And so, like, you personally, have you thought of some things that maybe you want to accomplish this year, or what are your music New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, so I would say, as far as the music portion, consistency is, I guess, Chad and I's biggest struggle. We love producing the content. It's getting the content out that's difficult at times, So one of the things that I enjoy still making are my drum videos from home. That's one of the things I want to focus on heavily this year. More so to represent, the companies that I endorse currently. Shout out to Groove Gear, Audix, Big Fat Snare Drum. Just to consistently put out content for them. So really excited about that. On a separate venture, though, I'm going to be starting a new TikTok page. I think we were talking about it earlier. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it just yet, but it's going to focus heavily on the musician content creator. And essentially the idea behind it is to give tips and tricks for the musician content creator that wants to enhance their video and audio. A lot of the times I get DMs, messages, basically asking me, hey, how do you record, your videos? What lighting? You asked me a couple of times, what lighting are you using? We are using the Govee lights behind us, so little things like that can enhance your video and audio for your social media. The last thing you want is to post something that you think looks and sounds really good and really it doesn't. So, the goal behind that TikTok page is solely just to give you tech advice, on what you could currently use already that might be at your disposal, or something that you could purchase that will last you and be an investment for your content. So that's the goal right now. What about you? What do you have going on?
I had a conversation recently with a friend, and they were asking me, "What exactly do you do?" And I was like, "What do you mean? I'm producing, I'm doing sound stuff, all that kind of stuff." But I haven't talked to this friend in a while, and they knew me as a musician. And I look back at my Instagram, and that's the only way that we're actually connecting these days. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I actually don't post any of that stuff because I did all my touring and all that like a decade ago, and I've really just honed in and focused in on sound and producing." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe it's time that I should show these people what I actually do." So in the same light of you on your social media, I'm actually going to try and focus in on showing some ways of what I do. Right? Like a lot of mixing stuff, I'll try to do live gigs. Kevin, again, in relation to the content he's trying to put out, he's given me a lot of advice, not just on lighting, but on video cameras, even on microphones, lapels, wireless, like what works with what. And I've just had it all sitting there because I haven't had the time to really figure it out. Yeah. But, hopefully this year with all the gigs and stuff, I'll be able to produce more content that way. Which, it's funny that we're both kind of heading into that direction because we're so busy doing the actual job that we might have forgotten, or we just haven't had time to also do part of the job, which is marketing. And the reality is, unless you have a team that's going to help you market, you kind of have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And we both know that. We both realize that, and we've tried in the past, but we also know the importance of it in this current state. And I think that's why both of us are really trying to emphasize, just showcasing what we do and the skills that we have. And so what we're going to do now is we actually want to help you out wherever you're at in your journey. And we want to give you some tips from us that we've seen, that we've implemented, and give you some examples on that. And one of the things that's really good to do in this season is to focus on yourself and to focus on your craft. And whatever it is, whether it's you're being a musician or you're in the studio or something like that, you always want to grow and you always want to be better. And so we want to give you 3 tips on how to be better at what you do.
So tip number 1 on how to be a better musician: practice. You cannot escape this. This is not something you can put to the side. This is something you have to do consistently, if you can, every day, okay? 30 minutes a day, at least to start, if you're starting on this new musical journey. Come up with a practice regimen. For example, if you are learning how to play drums, number 1, you start with rudiments. You put a metronome, maybe start at 60, 70 BPM, practicing single strokes. Do that a couple times for a minute, 2, 3 minutes, whatever, and then move on to 10 BPM. You speed it up by 10 BPM. So now you're doing single strokes at 70. Once you get it at 70, it feels comfortable, move on to 80. As soon as you start kind of getting the gist of it, 90, 100, until you can't kind of go any longer. That's one way you can improve your speed, your handling, your technique. Be mindful of how, the strokes that you're hitting and how intentional you are with your right and left hand, especially if you are not ambidextrous. Ambidextrous? Yeah.
Ambidextrous?
Ambidextrous? Not sure. Essentially, if you cannot play with your left hand, focus on your left hand. If you can't play with your right hand because you have to be left-handed, focus on your right hand. So on and so forth. That's one tip I'd give.
Tip number 2 on how to be a better musician. Listen to music. And not just any music. Listen to something new. Listen to something fresh. Being a full-time musician, we're so busy working on our craft. We're so busy learning other people's music, whether you play for an artist or you play for yourself, or you're an artist yourself, that we actually don't know what's happening around. Maybe what's current, what's new, what's not new, But listening is how we actually, I'm sure, is how we, all of us, got into music in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's such a critical and important thing in being a musician that it's so easy to forget because we're always in music or we're always doing music. But to listen to music, whether it's in live settings or exploring stuff on Apple Music or Spotify, which you could find our podcast on and rate it 5 stars. Thank you very much. But listening is such an important craft and skill that needs continual honing in and discovery as a musician.
Tip number 3, this also has to do with listening. Heed the advice of others. The ones that come before you, the musicians that you highly respect, take the advice on what they recommend you to do to better your craft, right? So if they're saying, hey, I could be telling you practice 30 minutes a day, but somebody that you respect might be telling you, hey, practice an hour a day, and instead of doing rudiments, practice some grooves, practice different time signatures. They might give you different advice, but it's all for the betterment of your career. And if it is something that you want to pursue as more than just a hobby, it's going to take dedication. It's going to take discipline. If you want to get better, there's just no way around practice and listening to those that definitely have paved the way in the music industry. If you have those connections, cherish them, listen to them, and make sure that you value them.
After you've worked on getting better because you have all this time, the next probable question is, how do I land the next gig? So, Kevin, what are some tips that you could give our audience on how to get the next gig?
Tip number 1 on getting the next gig: talk to your friend. That might be a music director, that might be a musician in the band that you want to be in, that might be the production manager. Essentially, you're not that far away from that gig possibly. And so, let them know you're available. Don't seem too desperate. Don't try to take the gig if it's somebody else's, but if there's an availability that arises, present yourself as someone that's available to do it. Have your content ready. Have that ready to go. Send it out, and hopefully, they'll consider you for that opportunity.
Tip number 2 on how to land your next gig: show up to those gigs. Now's a good time for you to just show up at a local, bar or club or live music scene, or maybe there's even some, medium shows that are kind of, in LA or something like that are good for you to show up to. Show up, whether you know the musicians or not. In smaller, intimate places, and actually, this is something that I didn't even know that I consciously did, but back in my college days and all that kind of stuff, I would just show up to open mics. I'd show up to some really tiny shows at a coffee shop or a restaurant. And after the gig, I could literally just go up to the musician or the artist and I would strike up a conversation. And again, it goes with your tip, talking to your friends or whatever. You could make a friend there just from a simple conversation. I've gotten gigs sometimes just because I owned a keyboard amp and I wasn't even a keyboard player. But I would go to a gig and say, oh, hey, that's you could use a bigger amp or something like that. When's your next gig? I can help you out. I've got a keyboard amp. And from there, a conversation happens, a relationship happens. They find out I play bass. And one time, 6 months later, a bassist calls off, and guess who they call? So showing up to other people's gigs is actually a really great way to land the next gig.
And tip number 3, this might be a risky one, but sometimes the risk is worth the reward. Send the DM. It might, sometimes a lot of people think that artists are not accessible.
Approachable,
approachable,
right.
And because you see they have 250,000 followers, 500,000 followers, 1.5, whatever it is. Some artists love to go through their DMs, believe it or not. So you might just have to send that DM. Again, have your content ready. If you want to play for that artist, have 2 or 3 video selections of playing their songs. You know, the style that you play in, send it to them. Let them know, hey, I'm available if you need a drummer or bassist, a keyboardist, whatever it is, you know, that you play. Present that to them. Let them know that you're available, that you have a car, you have transportation. That's really, really important. And you're willing to do it if the opportunity arises. Sometimes it's just as simple as that.
That's a really good tip that I want to share a story on. I sent a DM to a really, really, really famous bass player here in LA who's been on everyone's records and has been on my favorite artist records. And it was, I kind of had a project, but I also kind of didn't. I just really shot, a shot in the dark. And I'm one who, again, admittedly is not good and will not send random DMs, especially to somebody in that higher echelon. But I shot a DM to this person saying, hey, I'm a producer. And, I had no followers or anything like that. Nothing credible to see on my Instagram. But I'm a producer. I really love your bass playing. How much do you charge for a song? He gave me their rates for independent versus major label. And he gave me all the contact info. He said, if you have any samples that I could listen to, that can help me determine if I want to take the gig or not. From there, we kind of DM every, 6 or 8 months or something, just randomly. But we've kind of started a little bit of this relationship. And I'm telling you, he is one of the top bass players in the world. And because I shot a simple DM to him, I'm connected somehow.
Yeah. And to further add to that point of the whole DM thing, that's how I got some of the guests when I was doing my own show. I don't know if you knew this. A lot of the times I just cold call, email, send the DM, tell them, hey, I have this podcast. I'd show some credibility by showcasing who I've already had on my show at the time. And so a lot of them were more inclined to do it because they saw, hey, well, this guy has already had, has 4 or 5 people that are highly respected within the music industry, So, and by the way, if you don't know how to type or you don't know how to write, use ChatGPT.
There's AI.
There's
AI.
It's to your benefit. Use ChatGPT real quick. Have it write something out for you, short and sweet. Send it and pray to God that they answer.
And now we're going to give you tips on how to better market yourself.
Tip number 1, figure out your niche. Really, really important. What do you want people to know about you? What are you trying to convince them of? If you are a music professional, are you a professional on the drums, on the bass, on the guitar? What is it that you can showcase best and have the most expertise on? Post about that. Get your content all related to that. Follow pages that are just solely on that. I've been learning a lot about this. I have a friend that's pretty successful with TikTok Shop. And one of the things she consistently has been basically telling me is, Kev, figure out what your niche is. Hone in on that. Try to produce as much content related to that as possible. And, be consistent. Again, consistency is key.
And this is a great segue because tip number 2 on how to better market yourself is expand your market. So Kevin just said that he's now trying to expand into TikTok Shop, which realistically is not in the music industry. So one of the great things about social media is we're able to put out clips, samples, and things showcasing what we do. But maybe you're not skilled in videography, and maybe you're not skilled in editing. So expand your market now and go find a videographer. Somebody like who on our team is like Nathan. Nathan, who's our amazing videographer, now brings his skills to what we're trying to do. And in that essence, your market just expands and it grows now into the film industry. And maybe there's somebody in that industry who might need music for something and vice versa. Maybe now you need a videographer to follow you on tour or maybe at a show. By expanding your network, that's how you can better market yourself.
Tip number 3, have professional videos and photos of yourself available online. Whether that's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, have something available that you'd be proud to say or send to a potential client. That way, when they view your content, it's something that you'd be proud of sharing. And number 2, they could hire you for. So again, this might cost you a little bit of money. It's honestly not that much to get some portrait shots done. We've done a couple of these in the past, $150, $200. If you have a friend that is already a photographer and a professional one at that, go do a portrait shoot. Go to rent out a studio, even do it outside. Just have those readily available. Again, when it comes to video, you can use your phone, your iPhone, your Android, whatever it is. Shoot 4K, shoot 4K 24. That's my personal preference. Some people will debate 24 frames, 60 frames, whatever. 4K 24 is more than enough. Have it readily available on your YouTube channel, on your Instagram. In any case that anybody needs content from you, you can market yourself as, hey, I do this, and this is what I can showcase, and this is how I can best represent your company, your brand. Trust me, people are going to be into that and respect you more so because of the fact that you do have that available.
And that's a perfect segue into our last subject today. And we're going to give you some tips on networking. Such a scary big word. But there is a really famous saying that your network is your net worth. And so this is a really important part of being a musician, is really your network. I'd say like 90+% of the work that you're going to get throughout your career is going to be based on your network. And now network has gotten kind of a bad name for it, because people think it's just transactional and whatnot. But I always like to talk about it in relationship. Who are you really investing, your relationships in? And so today we're going to talk about 3 tips on how to better your networking and connection. Tip number 1 on growing your network: show up to industry conventions. We have a really important industry convention, actually the largest one in the music industry. It's called the National Association for Music Merchants.
I still don't know how you know that, but
AKA NAMM, that's held here in Anaheim. And literally, it's a worldwide convention of all musicians from everywhere and music manufacturers that come to this really large exhibition convention center. And they hang out for 3 or 4 days. And it's one of the absolute best ways to network. They made it so easy where your badge has QR codes and you just, take a picture of the QR and it has all their contact info, this and that. And you can just literally just start scanning everybody's QR codes. But it's so important because almost anything that you need is in this 3 or 4 day convention. And so whether you need drumsticks or microphones or piano lessons or whatever you could think of, it's there. There's also live performances, and all of these musicians that you probably look up to on the internet, on Instagram, on TikTok, or on YouTube, they're most likely there, and you could start a conversation there. You never know what you're going to bring to somebody else's network, but if you're physically there, nothing can replace that. Being there and striking up a conversation where, again, the world's musicians are in one place.
Tip number 2, work on your public speaking skills. Because guess what? In order to network, you have to be able to talk. And sometimes you have to be the one to initiate that conversation. So it's coming in and saying, hey, how you doing today? My name is so-and-so, whatever. Like if you're speaking to the rep of the company that you want to network with or be with, general questions like, so how long have you been with the company? What brings you to let's say you're at the NAMM show. What brings you to the NAMM show? They're obviously going to tell you, oh, I'm here working, as a rep for, 64 Audio, whatever, this company, that company. You have to be able to be relatable in the sense of, you have a welcoming personality. A lot of the times I might ask a question of like, when do you leave? When do you go back home? After the NAMM show's done, and they might be short and say tomorrow. And then that's all that they give me. Well, then the next follow-up question could be, all right, so when are you coming back? And when you do come back, where's your favorite place to eat here in LA? As you guys know, Chad and I love talking about food, so I always recommend what? Peruvian, baby. So work on those skills. It's only to your benefit. Again, public speaking, I understand, is something that people tend to be afraid of because sometimes they run out of questions, things to say. But being able to have those questions or comments in the back of your mind, it's going to save you a lot of time. And again, we'll be able to elaborate more on the conversation. Believe it or not, a lot of people love to talk and sometimes about themselves. So it's to your benefit. Work on your public speaking skills.
Tip number 3 on networking: make sure you're prepared with what you're bringing to the table. A relationship is always a two-way street. Some musicians think just because they got gospel chops and all that, that everybody's going to flock to them and everybody's going to call them for their gigs. Everybody is going to want to sponsor them and all that. It doesn't work like that. This is the music industry. We're in the music business, and it's always a two-way street. So, especially in this time, prepare yourself. What are you offering to this company or to this MD or to this artist that's going to make them want to work with you? Whether that's having a great portfolio, showcasing all of your skills and how diverse your skills are, or maybe you're just so great to work with that your skills maybe is secondary, but you're just so great to be a hang around. Or maybe it's your actual network. Maybe your network can actually help their network because there's some people or skills that they need that they've been trying to find. So make sure that you're always coming to the table prepared with what you are going to offer. Don't just receive. Make sure you have something to give.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Come on, somebody.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Chad and Chong Podcast. We're so excited that you spent your time here with us. We hope that you found a lot of value, and hopefully these tips were really helpful for you on your journey. We want to give, again, a big shout out to our new team here, the Dream Team, Nathan, Raphael, and Ernie. Make sure you follow all their socials. These guys are professionals at what they do. And again, in terms of networking and expanding your network, they're available. They want to be hit them up. Follow us as well as we start pouring out our own personal content. Shoot us a DM, type in a comment what you want us to showcase and highlight. And we may be having a little community in terms of a Discord coming up.
Love that.
So type it in the comments if you guys want to be a part of that.
If you haven't already, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow our page, rate us 5 stars, please. It helps us to get content out to the masses, and that's what we want, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for checking out this episode. We'll see you on the next one.